Death is everywhere. It's all around us. It lingers beneath every conversation and behind our deepest fears and anxieties. It is simultaneously extraordinary and mundane, hiding in plain sight, even when we refuse to acknowledge it. At the same time, death is an opportunity for life, healing, and humor.
Hello and welcome to Death, the podcast about death, dying, and how it relates to us, the living. My name is Jordan, and I am one of your hosts. That voice you heard at the top there was Jasmine Rayburn. Say hello, Jasmine.
Hey.
And with us as always, or the inaugural time, but will be, as always, Rob Irvin.
Hello, everybody.
And so let's talk a little bit about what the podcast is.
Yes.
At the very beginning, I think.
Yeah.
You know, we got the tagline talking about death and dying and what?
Removing taboos.
Yeah, just trying to have an honest conversation about death.
Removing stigmas, I think, is kind of our... Would you call that our mission statement?
Yeah, it's more just kind of getting comfortable talking about things relating to death before you need to, you know? I think a lot of people...
We're all going to die.
Well, yeah, it affects
Certainly.
us all.
Except
and
me.
We live in a pretty death-phobic culture, and I think sometimes that means that people don't get the support that they need to process death and loss and grief.
Or maybe they don't even want it. Maybe they don't want the support. They don't want to talk about it because it's too hard.
Well, it's scary, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a big fear of like inconveniencing others. I feel like nobody wants to be kind of the one bringing down the conversation, you know. So if we can talk about it in a way that's not necessarily, you know, a huge bummer.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be stop everything. We need to talk about death.
Yeah, it is an inevitability. And, you know, like anything, it's healthier to have an open conversation about it. And so, since this is a thing that affects literally everyone, I think that's an important conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And why not talk about it on our terms, you know?
Mm-hmm.
At our speed and in the way we want to talk about it instead of just relating directly to immediate
Exactly, when
need.
you're within that situation necessarily.
So, Jasmine, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience in, what would you call it, the end of life industry? End of life care?
Pre-post-mortem care?
Yeah. I've technically very brief professional experience with end of life care.
Jasmine is our resident professional, although
I'm not a professional.
She's far
She's
too...
made it very clear that
She's
not.
far
I'm not a
too
professional
bashful to say
because
so.
I know people who do this.
Yeah.
You know, people who really do it. And that's another thing I'd like to, you know, talk about sometimes with this podcast is the people who are actually pioneers and moving the conversation forward,
Yeah.
the people who are on the floor changing laws and helping people.
What a hard job that is, and how it takes a certain kind of individual to do that day in and day out. And
Yeah, I hear that a lot. But you know, there's more people out there who are equipped for this than you would think. You know, there's something very rewarding about helping people die well. Like it's kind of an honor, you know, in a way. I think something like rehab or, you know, helping children would be more difficult because the aim is improvement and that there very seldom is any kind of improvement. Whereas when you're looking at end of life care, you know, you're not looking to stop the person from dying at that point.
Yeah.
You're just making
Easing
a
them through
process
it.
that's happening easier. So
Yeah.
it's really very rewarding.
Well, this is the first episode of Death. And so with that, why don't we talk about our first kind of interactions with death, our first
experiences.
Yeah, start at the beginning.
First people that we knew to die.
When you lost your death-ginity.
My death-ginity.
Death-ginity.
Huh. That sounds kind of...
Coining it. It's going on a shirt.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm only in this to make shirts, by the way.
Yeah, hashtag.
That sounds like the
buy our
first time
merch.
you had sex with a dead person.
Oh, good God.
That's what we're talking
Death
about,
ginity.
right?
Oh, okay. So what was the first time you
That's
had
what
sex
I meant.
with
What
a
do
dead
you guys
person?
mean?
Not that.
What about you, Rob?
My first funeral, like I didn't go to a funeral, I think, until I was I want to say 16. I know my mom will probably correct me, but it was my great grandma Kay who passed away. It was also the first family member I knew to die, and we've talked about this a little bit. Just how that was hard for the whole family, and there was some infighting between siblings, my grandparents, and my great aunt. And that was really tough, but I also don't think that because I was so unaccustomed to death, I didn't really process it at the time.
Yeah.
Like, I knew my grandma was getting really sick.
And so how old were you?
I want to say I was 16.
Okay.
Were you close with her?
Yeah, like we would visit pretty much every week.
Okay,
Yeah, we were always really close. We were a really close family.
Yeah.
Like, we were all in the valley, like me, my mom and dad, before they split, and my sister, and then our grandparents were there. Our great aunt was just up island with her partner. Honestly, don't know too much about her. And then my grandma Kay also lived in the valley. So we were always, like, any family dinner, it was like
Everyone
all
together.
of us together. So we were really close, and we knew that Grandma Kay was going out. And I think she had already battled with, I want to say, ovarian cancer or uterine cancer.
Yeah.
And so the second time that she got cancer was she decided not to medicate for it, not to prolong anything, and just kind of let it go naturally. So we saw it coming for a couple years. I think it was 2 years from when she was diagnosed the second time to when she eventually passed.
Yeah.
And I just never really... I remember the funeral. I remember, like, we didn't see her body or anything. It was closed casket, but everyone was obviously super sad. I was super sad, but I was mostly just kind of, I think, sad because everyone else was sad.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't really process it until I was much older. Like in my mid-20s, just maybe a couple years ago, really, was when I started kind of talking about it. And
I don't think anybody really fully processes it until after the fact of, like, any death, right?
Sure.
You're always just kind of working your way through it.
Sure.
For a while, at least.
Yeah. And I think because we had such a long runway we knew that she was going to pass soon.
Yeah.
We
prepared for it.
Well, we started mourning before she was even
gone.
So I think that a lot of people had worked through a lot of that preliminary grief early on. But it makes it harder in a lot of ways. It makes it easier in some ways, I'm sure, to have that long, drawn out process.
People get fatigued, like you can only be at peak emotion for so long before you start to get tired, and it's like, and then you feel guilty because you're not feeling it as much. And then it's just like,
for sure. I did feel that. I felt guilty for not necessarily, the death didn't really resonate with me.
Thinking you're supposed to mourn a specific way. Or
like if you don't scream or cry or, start a fight or
casket,
that you're not feeling pain and that means you didn't love them.
Yeah, I felt like am I some kind of cold, unfeeling sociopath because I'm not so earth-shatteringly devastated by my great-grandma's death. But
turns out if you were a sociopath, you probably wouldn't be worried about being a sociopath.
Yeah, that's a good marker.
I think that's generally how that works.
That's a good barometer.
Like, guilt is, it always kind of rears its ugly head around loss, especially drawn-out losses. People feel a lot of guilt and shame. And
what's reflection, right?
Yeah.
You're reflecting on your relationship with that person and their life.
Which is kind of sad for the person who is in the process of dying, because it's my opinion that there's actually like a lot of life to live in that short period of time. But when people are starting to detach to protect themselves, you can kind of miss out on that opportunity, right? To bond.
It was also hard because she had dementia for quite a few years prior to the second diagnosis. So when she was getting really sick and starting to really go, she was also forgetting names. Yeah. So it was hard for people to still go and see her every week.
Yeah.
It's just too painful.
Because, like, she was calling me Brad, which is my stepdad's name. She was, it's hard.
Yeah.
So instantly it's like, first of all, you're going to visit grandma and she's not doing well. Yeah. And then you also know that she doesn't really know who you are. So it's like,
so it's almost gets to the point where you're like, well, this is rough for me, and it's not necessarily positive for her as well. You can.
It's hard not to think like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, again, there's only so much emotion you can sustain,
Totally.
you know, before you start to detach a little bit. It's just how the brain works, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to feel guilty about it, you know. It's something a lot of people deal with, you know, is watching that kind of, especially with dementia and Alzheimer's or anything that kind of fits under that umbrella, you know, where somebody's losing themselves, you know. And then it becomes harder and harder, you know, and that's where the care workers come in, right? You know, where they're able to be that kind of daily
pick up that weight,
warmth, hopefully, you know, because it's like people who are experiencing that, they can still feel, and often do, still feel afraid, feel alone, feel angry, you know. But sometimes it's too much to ask that the people who knew this person at their best, you know, to go in on a daily basis and watch that.
Yeah.
What about you, Jasmine? What was your first experience with death? And like, you don't have to, I don't know, like,
the first one that maybe had an impact on me, I guess.
Or just in any kind of experience with death, I guess, as well.
I mean,
the first one that
I grew up in and around farms, so there was always lots of animals dying.
Sure.
And having pets has always been like, I think everyone should grow up with a dog. It's like death light.
I think that's the first, I don't know, I think that's even the first death that really has a huge impact on you as a kid.
Yeah.
I think if you
the death
have,
of a
because
pet.
that's like a real strong relationship that you're going to have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's an unconditional
me.
love as well that
Yeah.
people get from their pets, you know. So I think pets are great. You learn a lot. You learn friendship. You learn responsibility. And then eventually you learn about death, you know. And I think a lot of people, their first experiences with loss have been about that. I think probably my first real pet loss, his name was Stubby. He was a corgi.
Stubby?
Yeah, he was the
Well,
best.
It's a good name for a
He was
corgi.
really cute. The neighbor ladies wouldn't stop feeding him, so he was like really obese.
Belly is just touching the ground constantly.
Yeah, he'd lie on his side and his legs wouldn't touch the ground. We were animal abusers. Anyway, he lived to 15 and we had to put him to sleep because he was in pain. Couldn't see, couldn't come up the stairs.
Yeah.
You know, so this dog had been around my whole life at this point. I think I was like 11 maybe.
Yeah.
And then
And let's not beat around the bush. Like when you say put to sleep,
he
like,
was
you had to
murdered in a vet's
euthanize
office.
him.
Yes. No, he was,
It's
which...
It's a lot less palatable when you say I had to kill my dog when it
Yeah.
turned 15. But that's definitely more the reality of it.
Yeah.
It is the reality of
True.
it. But, you know, it's like... That's how it was told to me at the time
Sure.
as well, because I was a
Sure.
child.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
put to sleep is like a term that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
he'll
you
be
talk about
dreaming for the rest of his little doggy life.
Yeah, or, you know, I'm glad my parents never lied to me or, like, told me that a dog was on the farm, you know, or something
Sure.
like that, you know, like, because...
Definitely told you that there was some kind of
Well, that's because
closure.
you were
Yeah.
the farm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
It's on
I
a
was like, what
different
do you
farm.
mean?
Well, we have
yeah, why?
could have just stayed here.
Yeah, we were
got
on an
great farm.
acreage with, like, way too many cats and no animals.
Can't use that. Yeah, you can't use that
cat farm.
excuse when
It was
you're
basically we
already
farmed
there.
cats. Yeah. They got the
Farms
mice.
cat milk.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to milk cats? It is a struggle every day.
God. I did see a lot of dead cats because the coyotes
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the elements as well. And cats are, I don't know if you've ever seen a dead cat,
Mm-hmm.
but their eyelids and their mouths recede.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible. They look like they
They look
died in
terrified.
terror. They
Yeah.
look like the first scene in The Ring.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's really, yeah.
it's rough. And then we'd
Shocking.
just throw them in the burning barrel so the coyotes wouldn't come into the yard.
You had a barrel for
We had a burning
a
barrel.
body of dead
Yeah,
cats.
so considering that, taking Stubby to the vet, you know.
It's a little more palatable.
And we, you know, we drugged him up, gave him food he liked, and he was
Sure.
like pretty
Yeah.
happy.
Went out with a bang.
Yeah, he wasn't in pain anymore, you know, and you see an animal being in pain every single
Yeah.
day and not knowing why and not being able to control it, you know. So, but mostly what I learned from that stuff, other than kind of my own personal relationship with loss, is I got to observe loss in others. You know, you watch and you see how your parents deal with loss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's where I
Yeah.
learned what was acceptable and what wasn't. You know, like my great grandmother was
But
the
that's
first.
also an opportunity to learn really bad coping habits,
Well, exactly.
depending on how your
Yeah.
family copes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like my great grandma Solomon. She was a huge part of my mom's life. She had like
Grandma Solomon.
13 kids. She was like
Strong last name.
matriarch You know, she was like a real,
Real
strong
tough bitch.
Catholic. And yeah, she was hard, but she was sweet. And she was
Right.
nice to my mom, and my mom's parents weren't that nice to her. So she was really, really close. So when she died, that was the first time I saw like one of my parents grieving,
Yeah.
you know, like she couldn't breathe. Like she was just, and my great grandma was 93 or something at the time. She had
That's a long life.
like 400 direct descendants. She
Wait,
had
how many?
great grandchildren at the
400?
funeral.
My
She had
God.
13 kids. And then they all had
They
tons
all had
of kids.
13 kids.
You know, so it was pretty crazy going to that
That's 13
funeral
squared.
and just like standing in
That's
a
a lot.
room packed full of people.
How big was the town that you grew up in?
Well, I grew up in a town of 500 people approximately.
Yeah,
but
that's so her family was the size of the town that you grew up in, basically.
pretty
comparable.
much. Yeah. And we went to she lived in Cupar. I don't know if you know where that is, but it's another tiny town.
I don't think I do.
But she and then friends she made along the way, and all these people who were in her church, and so it was pretty cool. Like I think looking back on that, like I'm glad that was kind of like the first
Yeah.
family loss.
Yeah.
Because there's something that's kind of beautiful about that. Someone who lives a long, rich life and
Yeah.
then has had this impact. So, but yeah, my parents fell to pieces. My mom especially. So it was like, oh, where's mom? And my dad trying to kind of manage the situation.
Right.
we didn't know.
Literally just on like damage control
Basically, yeah.
at a certain point.
You know.
And we've kind of talked about before we started recording, we talked about, I think this was a couple weeks ago, we talked about the difference between a graceful death and a death that lacks grace.
Yeah.
Whether it's post-mortem or during the end of life cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we'd call a good death.
A good death.
I don't think
yeah.
we really say bad
Bad
death,
death?
but
But
it's
there
more
are,
just
they
like
do exist, though.
emphasizing
Wood
on the
chipper.
positive.
That
you
seems
know?
like a bad death.
That's what we call a messy.
Yeah, I would say messy is
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, a bad death would be like a toilet death.
Sure.
I wouldn't.
No, but
Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
no, but that's
bad.
convenient because you evacuate your bowels. You're already on the toilet.
It's true.
That's
Happens
the
to most
opposite
of
of a
us.
wood chipper. That's the least messy death you can have.
Well, except for the funeral director that has to like break the person's legs because they died in a sitting position.
Stuck in.
You only open the
They're
top of the
stuck in a
casket
swamp.
anyways, so you just cut off the bottom.
Oh, good lord.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there are people
you
who
just
have to
buy-
make decisions like that.
You just buy 2 shorter caskets. One for the legs and one for
magician
the
'em.
torso.
You
Like
do
a
it right
magic
at
pull 'em
trick,
apart,
Yeah.
you do it right at the funeral. Actually,
Yeah.
you have the coffin and you saw him in half.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
There's actually like a short person in the leg one, and he starts wiggling his
Oh
legs.
my god,
You really mess with people.
that's
Yeah.
brutal. I did used
That's
to
the
have
kind
a,
of
like,
funeral I want, though.
Yeah,
I want,
that's
I want
cool.
something wacky.
That's not bad.
I used to say that I wanted an open casket and I wanted my eyes to be open.
Oh my god. Oh.
No, but then you get them put like contacts in, so they're like lizard eyes or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Right.
So you really
You
freak
finally
people
see
But I
out.
my
honestly
true
think
form.
just having the eyes open, I think it's simple and it would go far enough.
No,
you know?
that would really creep
some
people
some
out.
8-year-old first body they've ever seen, like
So you just want to destroy as many people on your way out as
yeah,
possible.
and just donate all my money
Absolutely.
to to ISIS or something. Just spend my whole life doing like community work and then
There's
just
a little
like,
jar.
Is it the end ruin it all?
just to
There's a viewing for your body, and there's a little jar next to the door when you walk in, and it just says for ISIS.
Yeah,
for
donations.
ISIS,
There's a couple
yeah.
loonies in there.
Donations accepted. Yeah,
For
already got it
ISIS.
started.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Just because it would be so funny.
Finish what I started. That's why I'm
What
the
about
editor.
you, Jordan? What was your first?
Mine was very similar to both years. The very first funeral I remember going to, and first like family death, was my great grandmother.
Okay.
I wasn't quite as close to her. Like I was pretty young, and I remember the funeral. I remember going to visit her a couple times as a kid. I remember the funeral. I distinctly remember she was cremated, and I distinctly remember one of my younger sisters asking where she was, and me saying she's in that little box.
Oh,
And my
she couldn't.
And my mom
comprehend
getting
that.
kind of like pissed at me, like, don't say it like that.
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
And you're a kid, so
Yeah, I
don't
didn't know any better. I was probably trying to be funny too, I think, honestly.
Not maybe the perfect time to make that joke.
No. that was, yeah, so that's the first experience I have with like a funeral and stuff like that. And same thing I have, we had a family dog named Kaylee that we got from the pound, and she was a little bit older when we got her. And so we had her for probably 5 years, and this is when I was young. This is like the dog that I remember growing up with. And I remember there was one night where I was playing with her, and we were just running around in the basement. She was a big dog. She was like a collie. She was like a lassie.
Sure.
And then the next morning, I woke up and went to go feed her, I think, and she was outside. And I went to go feed her, and she just, for the first time ever, like didn't get up when I like walked out, and was just kind of laying there. And I like tried to like get her to move and stuff like that. And she was just like she was conscious and lucid, and she was like sitting up, but she wasn't moving. And then kind of like realized that there was something wrong, and then we took her to the vet, and it turned out she had a bunch of tumors in her stomach, and we figured she'd been hit by a car when like before we got her, because she used to chase cars all the time,
Right.
and figured she got hit by a car because she walked kind of funny, had bad hips. And then I think it turned out, if I remember correctly, that like her stomach had somehow like twisted around her spine, and that she ended up being like paralyzed, which was like crazy. I was like playing with her the night before and running around, and then like that morning she was like,
She's twisted weird, and that's
yeah,
it.
I don't know. And then so then we had to put her down, and I remember that being just like, yeah, devastating, and being the first time experiencing those kinds of emotions, really, and like loss, and recognizing that like never gonna see this living thing again, right?
Aw. How old were you?
I don't know. I would have been, I want to say like maybe 10,
Yeah.
11, maybe something like that. It was weird. And like we had a cat at the exact same time as well, like a little cat. And I was like, and that cat ended up passing away, I think maybe like 6 months later. And it was kind of the same thing where this cat was like the runt of the litter that like never survives and just happened to survive.
Yeah.
So wasn't going to live that long. But then, yeah, and same thing where one morning he just like wouldn't really like get up and was like sick and like throwing up, and we kind of just left him. And I remember like just going and checking on him, being really impressed for like a cat, like, and dying. And I remember like sitting on the lawn 10 feet away from him and calling him, and him being like sick and dying, and like getting up and walking towards me.
Oh my God.
And like coming to me. Like, that's a pretty good cat.
What a trooper.
Yeah. And then just like checking on him every 20 minutes or whatever, and then eventually checking on him and just being like, oh, he's rock hard now, he's gone. And that's basically it.
So that's your first body as well, hey?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And like, no, I don't think it was. I think I probably saw like dead animals and stuff before then, but that was, yeah. And that like that happening right after the fact, I think that was like a crash course a little bit when you're a kid.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you feel that like you were, how did you process that?
I don't know. I wasn't, as a kid, I don't think I was very good at processing a lot of my emotions. Did you have little funerals?
Did you have services for these pets?
For the dog, no, not really. Like we, because it was at the vet and stuff like that. I think we might have gotten like ashes or something like that and buried her, but I don't know. That might not even be true, or it might have just been an empty box and my parents just told us that or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Cup of dirt and threw it in a shoebox.
Yeah, exactly. They just pulled some ashes out of the fire pit in the backyard and threw it in a box. The cat, I remember we did bury specifically and had a little thing like that, but I don't know. I think like the first that I'm interested in when we talk about this is like first realizing when like you're gonna die as a kid and like your own mortality, because I remember that having a very strong effect on me too, and that was before this happened. That was when I was like really young.
Really?
Yeah, and I watched a movie called Shrunken Heads.
Blade Trinity.
No, even worse.
Like, oh no.
Shrunken Heads is what it was called, and it was about these little kids that get murdered.
Oh my God.
And then a voodoo priestess, I believe, that lives in their apartment building turns them into shrunken heads that fly around, and they exact their revenge on this, like, I think it's like a mobster or something that kills them.
Oh my God.
And they die in this accident or whatever related to some
This
whatever.
is a movie made for kids.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I watched
one of those like
it's like a bad B movie, horror B movie.
Like Goosebumps.
No, it's like not meant for, it was probably like a PG-13 movie, maybe even R, I don't know.
Ooh.
I watched
dark comedy.
Little Jordan watching R-rated movies.
I was not really censored to any of that stuff. and for the most part, didn't really have an effect on me. I don't think. Like I was like, I know this is fake.
Everyone says that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it did to some degree. Everything does, but
Yeah.
could always like disassociate with that. But I think that specifically was just the first time like I'd seen like adults and stuff like that die in movies.
Sure.
But I think that was the first time that I saw a kid and
Kids
realized
die.
like, oh, they can happen anytime. Anyone can die at any time. And I remember that being like, oh, and that kind of messing me up for a little while and having to mull that over.
That's a tough pill to swallow, you know? Like
And it just comes from a ridiculous place too. Like I want to rewatch this movie because I'm sure it's just
Sounds
awful.
Sounds amazing.
sounds really funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to research that.
We'll have to have a live stream where we watch it.
Shrunken Heads. Check it out.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's
God.
it's probably on YouTube.
Oh, definitely.
Just look up death.twitch.tv. We're going to be doing a
Good
live stream,
Twitch
where
stream?
we stream watching the
So
whole movie,
funny.
like Mystery Science Theater style.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you ever watch that?
Yeah.
No, I never got into it.
I've only watched a couple of like the originals. I really got into the new reboot. I
didn't. The one with Patton Oswalt?
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
get into
I
that.
really like. I also really like Jonah Ray, like the comedian, the guy that's the host now or
Yeah.
whatever. I really like him as well. So he's kind of what turned me onto it because I tried watching Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I've watched a few, but a lot of it is like the jokes are so of the time, or like referencing so many things of the time that I'm like, this isn't funny to me because
almost unwatchable.
It's out of
Right.
context. I can't.
The ones that land, though, are really good.
Yeah, but I mean that's why I like the return too, is because
Yeah.
okay, well this is of the time.
It's more topical.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's a good show.
I watched like a shitty horror movie, Jack Gyllenhaal, about
Jake Gyllenhaal,
Jake
Gyllenhaal?
Gyllenhaal. Yeah, see.
Jack Gyllenhaal, the
the evil twin.
the evil twin.
The Velvet Buzzsaw about like
Oh,
haunted killer paintings.
Yeah, I've seen the trailer for that. I want to see
You
that.
should watch it. It's
I
really funny.
heard really bad things
It's
about
shitty, but it's
Really?
it. I heard really bad things about it.
It's
I've
super
only seen
shitty,
one like
but it's super funny.
strong review for it. I want to watch it though.
But it's a killer. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's a killer
Painting. Yeah, it's like haunted or something, right?
It's not
It like
just-
makes people.
It's not just one.
Jasmine's like, no, it doesn't make that much sense.
Isn't it the same
Well-
director as Nightcrawler?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
Which is why I thought it was going to be really good. And then Jasmine, not this Jasmine in the room with us, but my roommate Jasmine watched it.
There can be more
said
than
it
one
was-
Jasmine.
Well, she's,
But I'm just-
she'll
for context.
Just call
Yeah.
her Jazzy.
Jazzy,
Yeah,
you're Jasmine.
she's way more
But
of a Jazzy than
Jazzy was watching it, and I was like, oh, should I come and watch this with you? And she's like, no,
I am. It's bad.
it's not even.
It's
worth
not
it.
even worth
no,
it.
no, it was really bad. I watched it while I was like doing something else, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the only horror movie I can handle is like
The really bad.
Krampus. Yeah, like
Krampus.
that's
Oh,
as,
man.
that's as hardcore as I get. Like Get Out ruined my week.
Zombie Nazis on the moon.
Yeah,
That's a good premise.
Yeah.
Terrible execution. I can't remember what that movie was actually called, but zombie Nazis on the moon.
Well, isn't there's because there's Dead Snow, which is the zombie Nazis, right?
Yeah, but
And
they're
then-
in like Norway or something.
Yeah, and then there's the Nazi movie on the moon.
Is it maybe a sequel of that or something?
I think it's different. It's Iron.
Iron
Eagle?
It does
Something
have
like
iron
that.
in the name.
Yeah.
It's
I
something
don't
really
remember.
stupid like Iron.
Yeah, it's
Iron Side, Iron Dark Side.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's really bad.
I love that
I highly
sequel
recommend it, but it's
sometimes,
really bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta watch bad movies, you know.
Yeah.
I like watching like chick flicks from the '90s because like so many of the jokes are just like so problematic now. Like they do not age well.
Most comedies from the '90s, I think, don't age well.
It's really good, but
There's
the
some
rom-coms
gems, though.
especially.
Sure.
Some of them are really funny, and their like makeup's all shitty, and they look like they've never had a glass of water. It just like makes me feel better about myself.
My favorite shitty movies are basically any movie written about like a video game. So like the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh my god, no!
Oh yeah.
So
That movie's great.
it scarred me as a kid.
That is surprisingly dark as
The Goombas
well.
scared the shit out of me.
Yeah,
Because I watched that movie when I was like 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
90s were the time of the dark comedy, man.
Yeah.
There's so many amazing.
But even like other video game movies, like the Doom movie. I don't know if you guys have seen the Doom.
Doom
movie.
is terrible.
It's
I haven't
so
seen it.
bad. But
Mortal
it's just, like,
Kombat is like the best.
I would say
video
it's like
game
the one
movie,
that
and
kind of
it's
did
not
it
good.
right.
No.
And it's not. They did it right,
But it's
still
still
really
it's
bad.
actually enjoyable to watch. Even
It's
though
because
it's
like
bad.
the narrative of those games isn't really there.
Yeah, you don't
No.
need
So like,
it.
we'll make a
just-
movie out
you're
of this.
just patching it together out of
Yeah.
nothing.
And
It's
the
all
writers
just
of
costumes.
the game are like, you're gonna make a movie out of what? It's a fighting game with
But-
no plot.
Apparently, that's a lot of the problem with like video game adaptations too, or like even getting them off the ground. Is a lot of like companies that own these properties are really like want to be really involved in what the story is and how you're portraying their game and
Yeah.
adapting it, because they also don't need the money. They're making more than what the movie will ever make anyway. selling the game for like the huge
Right.
properties. So like, it's a lot of guys that know how to design games or on these properties that are trying to like put into like film as well and work with this other company. I think that messes things up quite a bit.
Mhm.
You just get a jumbled mess. I don't know. I didn't see Assassin's Creed, or Prince
bad.
of Persia.
I love Michael Fassbender.
Me too.
Love him. And he was
He's such a hottie.
he was just okay in that.
Yeah, that's
Like he wasn't
Well, you
even
know,
doing
like,
his best acting to
he-
carry the movie. He was just
he's
like, I
like,
know this is gonna flop.
This
Yeah.
is just a
So,
paycheck for me.
Yeah, I wanted it to be so good
I
because I
know.
love those games and I love Michael Fass.
Michael Fassbender's like Idris Elba.
He's like a white
But
German,
oh,
Irish
just
Idris Elba.
yeah, just in the sense that he's one of those people where you see and you're like, that's unfair. You're like
He's
super good looking, incredibly talented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Rude.
have like an accent. You seem
Yeah.
very
I
intelligent.
was
You
not-
can
I
do
was
all
not
these
prepared for
fantastic
this
things.
Personal attack.
Yeah, like I know Michael Fassbender has a big dick, and I can only imagine Idris Elba's packing something huge.
Fuck me. Just
John
an
Hamm,
absolute-
that's another guy.
absolute wrench.
John Hamm is only. Sometimes he's really goofy looking, man. He's got like this.
Well, he's getting into goofier roles too,
I know, I
which
hate
doesn't.
it.
I don't think it helps
I
his
don't
image.
like him and Kimmy Schmidt. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just hating on.
John Hamm.
I just not
you don't
into
like the
it.
ham? What are you, Jewish?
I mean,
Really poorly pointed
I'm
kosher joke.
I'm sorry.
I'm a little Jewish.
Yeah, I'm not
You
a
know?
Jew, but I'm Jewish.
Yeah, there's my mother's a Solomon. That's
Yeah,
pretty.
that's a strong
That's
Jewish
there.
name. That's a dynasty.
I don't like the look of guys who are too polished.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well then we
Spending
could talk about
all-
Donald Glover. He's still a
off-putting.
good-looking dude,
Mr. Dong Lover.
and just fucking good at everything.
I know it's
Yeah.
stupid, right?
Well, the thing about him is, yeah, he's good at everything, but he also has like apparently this tremendous work ethic.
Yeah, well,
Where
you
it's
can
like-
tell.
Clearly does.
He's there's something always going on. Like it seems like he's always.
So he's I think it's not like some with Donald Glover, and I'm kind of speaking from my own point of view. That shit that he doesn't happen overnight.
No, for
No.
sure.
I remember watching. Do you guys remember when he was making videos on YouTube?
Yeah, Derek Comedy.
Derek
yeah.
Comedy.
Yeah.
I remember
Definitely.
watching that and being like, this guy is phenomenal.
Hilarious.
He's like, I don't know how old he was when he was doing that, like in his late
would've-
teens.
yeah,
he was
he would've
young
been
because he was
really
already like
young.
writing for 30 Rock. When he
Yeah.
was like,
And I was like, this guy is
21 or
so
something.
talented. And then he started singing and rapping, and then he started directing, like doing the show Atlanta. I don't know if you guys
I haven't
watched
seen it
Atlanta.
yet, but
My
I will.
God.
I've heard
Atlanta.
nothing but
Yeah,
good
I've seen the
things.
first 2 seasons.
He won a bunch of.
It's fantastic.
I think he won a
It's
bunch
one of the best.
Emmys or
It's like top
Golden
3
Globes. I can't remember which one, but
Emmys. I think.
Emmys,
I think
yeah.
well maybe both, but Emmys for sure.
he's.
It's one of the like best top 3 shows on TV.
It's because he just
at the very
never
least.
stops working.
Yeah.
I
If he's
wonder
not
where the
working
other
on a
guy
record,
in Derek
he's on a.
Comedy is at right now. Like,
Oh, I don't know. He's probably writing for something, but
right? He's got to be.
I would hope so,
I would-
because that can't have been all Donald Glover.
No,
that
it
can't have
wasn't.
been
It
a
wasn't.
No, no, no.
100%
There was
him.
there was 3 of them too because they had that like mystery team movie that came out,
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and that was like his like original group of guys that he worked with. I
Yeah.
think that's the other thing. I think he just surrounds himself with very talented people as well, which is always
got that
key
eye,
to
yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
Definitely.
Anyway, death.
Oh yeah.
yeah. We've been talking about movies for about 15 minutes.
We just needed a
that don't
palate
relate.
cleanse after talking about our
It's true. I
dead
think
pets and
that
relatives.
I
Yeah,
think
and
that our
that's-
viewers will need it too.
Yeah, and that's valid. I think. I mean, as time goes on, we'll probably talk more about death.
Yeah.
As the podcast goes.
Well, it's like getting into a hot tub.
But we're just
you know,
easing
yeah.
you in.
You
Yeah,
gotta
we're
dip your
easing
toe
you
in.
in.
Slowly, yeah.
Dip your toe in, maybe
We're-
dip your whole leg.
It's,
Yeah.
I gotta get used
Sit.
to not being like super serious about it because it's like I take it so seriously.
100%. Yeah, that's like
But
kind
I've
of
had
just
some
how.
like really good laughs around death as well. You know.
That's
that,
a big way that my family copes with.
yeah,
Everything
mine
is
not so
humor.
much.
You don't have a
We don't have a
you know,
jokey,
like a boisterous,
jokey coping system.
fun wake. Like some of the best parties I've been to have been
No.
wakes.
No, we didn't even have a wake for my grandma. I mean, maybe they did, and it was a
You weren't
no
invited?
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't-
Everyone
Do you-
can come but Rob.
Do you want to see every one of your family
Black
members
sheep.
just get totally like blackout, fucked
Yes.
up when you're like 10?
I do. My family's not a big drinking family. Well, like maybe my side of the family is like, but my grandparents not so much, and the rest of the other sides of the family not so much.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it was ever. I don't know. We were never conditioned to be like big boisterous I'm gonna laugh about this just to cope thing.
It's so good.
I'm
It's
sure.
the best.
I wish I had that.
Yeah, I
I
think
wish
we
it was
we
like
would
that
always
for every
kind of.
death I've experienced, because a lot of the times it just gets way too serious, and then there's no release at all, you
Yeah.
know, where it comes out
Yeah.
in like fucked up ways, just like pouring through the cracks of our coping skills.
Yeah, I mean, there's the other side of it. Like, I really value that aspect of my family and that sense of humor. But the other side of it too is that that's also a coping mechanism in the sense that you're not necessarily feeling the
Dealing with it,
emotions.
yeah.
You're kind of making jokes about it, which is something that I try to be aware of myself, and I think, and it's something that my family in general, I think, is just as time goes on, people are more aware of these things, and
Yeah.
so you do kind of head that way. But like after, like when my grandparents died and stuff like that, like my grandpa specifically, I remember we like did the funeral thing and all that, and had like the wake or like whatever after the funeral, and then we all went to my uncle's house, like a big, or like the family and like people that were close at least, and just had like a barbecue and just like, you know,
Sure.
hung out for hours
Unwind
and
a
told
little
stories and joke and just lots of jokes and
Yeah.
joking around. And
Yeah, it's like it's a tool, but it shouldn't be the full thing,
Yeah.
right? You know, like it helps you deal with it in the moment. There's certainly.
it's also unfortunately just as time goes on and people are busier, it's one of the few times you get, at least with my family, get your entire family together.
Totally.
You know? It's like weddings and funerals.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's it.
It's like the meme of like, I'll see you at Christmas, or if someone dies,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And, you know, whatever gets people together, I guess, you know.
So
It's good. You can share stories and heal that way, you know, like you need that. You need that to heal, to be around people who knew the person, you know.
Sure.
If you've had somebody pass
Yes.
away and you're not in that space, or you're not in that group, or maybe people aren't realizing that you're grieving, so they don't bring you into
yeah,
that.
you kind of feel like you need to be invited.
Yeah, well, you do have to
come
be
in.
invited for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that experience where a close friend of mine that when I was living in Saskatoon, that was from here on the island, passed away in Africa in a car accident, and
Wild.
and no one that I like in Saskatoon, like friends and family I was friends with, had ever met him, didn't know him. My like mom, I think, maybe knew of him. His name was Taylor, and he somebody that had a huge effect on my life at like a very crucial time in my life, like
Formative year.
yeah, like in like early 20s, right?
Yeah.
And so like him passing away and not having any of that closure, like, you know, the funerals out here,
Yeah.
I didn't like really know any of his family or like anyone that was close to him. I just kind of happened to find out even that he passed away on Facebook of all things. And then yeah, so like having that and kind of grieving alone, and like, and that's still something that I think to this day that I think about and haven't fully mourned, right? Because you don't have that kind of,
There's like regret.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that closure is a real thing, but I think there is an element of
finality.
yeah, of understanding something and kind of letting at least certain aspects of it go,
Sure.
and you kind of need that kind of release.
Yeah.
It's
you
an important
process
thing.
it
Yeah.
a little bit, you know. Did you ever do like anything on your own to just kind of acknowledge the loss or acknowledge
No,
the
I mean,
relationship?
I kind of grieved by myself in that week, and I did like, so I was living in BC at the time, and so there was like, I did have friends on Facebook and stuff like that knew him as well, and I kind of started a group chat, and we all kind of told stories and did online, that kind of thing. But there's a very obvious difference between typing on a screen and that disconnect, and actually, I think, mourning in person with somebody. I think you need that kind of physical closeness a lot of
Sure.
ways, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're still just, you know, monkeys. We're still just
You need
animals.
Very,
touch.
very social monkeys.
yeah, exactly. So we need that. So you, even with that, you miss an aspect of it, right? But
Yeah.
you do what you can. And I'm sure with how connected we are in the world now, and this might be something to talk about on a later episode, that's probably more common, and a thing that happens more and more, of people losing somebody that's on the other side of the world, or that they don't,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Well,
they're
we're
connected
becoming more
to,
and
but
more
not
of
physically.
a global community.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
it may not even be that someone you knew from your hometown died in Africa. Maybe someone you've never really met in real life.
Exactly. Somebody,
died.
yeah, somebody
And
you
that
just,
has an effect on you. How do you mourn your like internet friends?
Sure.
yeah, exactly. Somebody you're very, very close to, but yeah, maybe you've never interacted in the like
Yeah.
physical
But it doesn't mean
space.
that it doesn't have an impact.
Exactly.
On
It doesn't mean you're not very close and they're not important to you.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of having kind of a service for yourself. I mean, funerals are for the living anyway.
Yeah.
You know, just to have like plant an herb or go to a park and have a quiet moment that's dedicated to thinking about that person, you know?
Yeah.
And actually, like, even though it feels silly or something, or like you're not with other people, like going through that physical act, you know, to just face it and acknowledge it. Because I feel like for a lot of the losses that I've had, I've missed a lot of funerals, you know, when I was traveling in my early 20s, you know, I never dealt with it. I cried because it was more of like a physical response because I was in grief, but I never actually
dug down
like
and
like thought about the person the way that you
examined it
should, you know, to like examine the relationship and give them that space that they held in your life, you know. So you just kind of, it's like inhaling and just never exhaling, and you're just carrying that with you the whole time.
I, for one, have never visited a gravestone of anyone that I've known to die. I think that's something that people do less and less now.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah.
Just going to the physical spot that, you know, maybe some people believe that that's their closest connection to this earth.
Yeah.
If you're spiritual in any way.
Yeah, that has some sort of
it's a symbol.
Impact,
it's like
a
a totem,
it's a symbol,
right?
Yeah. That's never been, I mean, but that's the same thing. I don't, like a funeral as well. I think the being around other people and like the closeness and stuff like that and support is important, but the actual, the actual funeral and like letting go in that aspect is something that I've never really, I'm like, no, I don't really need this. I don't need this like ceremony.
Yeah.
This isn't
like, you feel like
this
you're
isn't
there
how
for
I
other
grieve.
people to support them
exactly
in their grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely how I feel. Pretty much any funeral I've been to.
Yeah, exactly.
I felt like this is not for me. This is for the family. This is for.
Oh, I felt proud of myself for not crying at funerals.
Really?
You know, like, I'm being strong.
Right.
You know?
Be strong for mama.
Yeah.
Because she needs it.
But it's also kind of like, it's skewed because then I'm like what? Viewing the people who are crying as weak?
Yeah.
Like,
that's the thing, right?
What does that mean? Like, where am I getting this sense of pride from? And, you know, it's also just kind of being taught that it's like, it's inappropriate to show too much emotion.
Yeah.
You know, or there's this like little window of ways that's okay.
That you're allowed to.
Yeah, and then beyond that, it's like, you know, unacceptable. So I do like the idea of kind of taking charge of your own grieving and being like, no, like, this needs space outside of other people as well, you know. Go to a spot that the person liked or that reminds you of them or something kind of gentle like that, you know, like where you don't have to worry about your reactions affecting other people, you know, where you can actually
maybe do an activity that you used to do together or something like that, or
something
that
that's
has
not so much about the death but more about the life, you know, right?
Yeah. It'll be interesting, I think, in exploring this idea more and stuff like that, because I don't know really how I mourn specifically. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what brings me closure, what doesn't.
Well, it's so different every time someone dies.
There's
true. So many different
and each
factors.
Relationship is different and stuff like that. But I think as we continue down this path, that'll be something that'll be interesting to discover, is different ways of grieving and different options you have out there and different things, and like what is beneficial and what isn't.
It's going to be wonderful digging into some resources. We don't have to like swim through the darkness. I think
you're gonna make me read.
Tools are important.
But
tools are very important.
Getting people tools, because I wonder how differently I would have processed death, or how I would be living kind of my life right now if I had been presented with the right tools by knowledgeable people.
It's very key. It's hard to dig a grave without a shovel. The tools are very, very important.
So speaking of processing death, we also wanted to talk about a new form. Well, not new. It's about 7 years old now.
Yes.
A new form of cremation.
Well,
called alkaline hydrolysis.
Hydrolysis.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's actually not new. I mean, it's essentially
newish to Canada.
The legal process,
the fact that it's legal,
also
right?
Some of the technology is new, but it's basically using lye to break down tissue into its chemical components. So it's
the key benefit of it is how environmentally friendly it is.
Yeah, it's basically green. It breaks everything down to its chemical components, and then you can just kind of like wash it down the drain.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, basically. And then it's just the only thing that remains would be bone.
Can you like explain the process a little bit more of how it breaks it down? Like what?
So what it says here This is from the Wikipedia page. The body is placed in a pressure vessel that is then filled with a mixture of water and lye and heated to a temperature around 160 degrees Celsius, but at an elevated pressure. So it's like a pressure chamber.
Yeah, so you're not burning it, cremating
So
it like you
doesn't
would
boil.
be. Yeah.
Instead, the body is effectively broken down into its chemical components, which takes about 4 to 6 hours. And then you can do a lower temperature and pressure, but it takes longer as well.
Right.
So it's just like a...
And then, so obviously it's not like regular cremation where at the end of it you have a box of ashes.
Yeah, exactly.
So when...
And you have the box as well, whereas like with there's no emissions as well. Like you're not burning anything, so there's nothing. But also when you use like a fire cremation, you're getting whatever the person was wearing, you're getting the box, you're getting, so you don't know if you're holding like a tablespoon of ashes.
Yeah, they're just throwing everything in there, and there's going to be... They're not... Like, I would imagine they're not even really, like, cleaning everything out necessarily.
No.
You might getting little bits of other people in there, too.
And then they have to grind the bones manually anyway.
Yeah.
When you have a
But they don't have to do that. They just do it for fun.
Yeah. It's just a space saver,
It's for the kids who come take tours of the crematorium.
They get
to turn the crank.
Oh God!
It's like a pasta maker,
like a rock tumbler or something.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That is.
Yeah, so
that's effectively morbid.
They still grind the bones, but then you just know like all you have are the bones.
Right.
You don't have anything else.
So that's what I was going to ask. Is there still, when you do this biocremation, is there still like a vessel full of something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just ground bone. It's not ashes, and they're not burnt. It basically it just cleans all the tissue off of the bone, and it's just clean white bone.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's but it's only.
So you could keep the bone.
They grind
display
them.
it.
I guess you
if
could.
you wanted to, I guess.
Could you keep
you
like
could make sculptures out of them, or
even donate it, I guess, to like science and stuff like that.
Well, I think after the process, it probably like
university thing.
I don't know. I would imagine they have to treat bones and stuff like that anyway. So if it's
you're doing half the work for them though. By
cleaning it off like really easily.
And what do? They just dip it in like varnish.
The reason this is one of the
they
first...
oil it with Danish oil.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's just like making teak furniture.
People do that shit, man.
No, I know. Bone sculptures are a weird and scary thing.
Hey, you do whatever you want with my body. I don't
taxidermy.
care.
I think I'm
gonna make
gonna
a
get
xylophone out of you, Jordan.
This little cat stuffed.
Rib xylophone.
What?
I'm gonna get him stuffed when he dies.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I don't know about.
Well, it's nice that you're waiting until he dies.
Well,
I stuff him all the time now.
Look
how much food he eats.
Yeah, he's a fat boy.
He's a big boy. We're talking about Jasmine's cat, Louis.
Snuggling your backpack.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Yeah. Sorry. The reason that this is a first is because Saskatchewan, the province where Jordan and I are both from,
whoop whoop.
Shout out Sask.
was the first province to legalize the process in 2012. And now
legalize it.
You must legalize.
Yeah, because Saskatchewan's really known for how like
progressive
it is.
Hey, first to get universal health care in Canada.
Yeah, it's like every like 50 years we got a little something, like we
just
gotta,
to keep it fresh.
Yeah, and now it's still only legal in Saskatchewan, Quebec, and Ontario.
So we're Canadian, by the way.
If you couldn't tell by our goofy accents and our silly bounty outfits that you can't see that we're all wearing. Yeah, we're all gonna die, huh?
I think that is an offensive stereotype, you guys. I don't know if we should be perpetuating that.
Yeah, but it's the only one I'm allowed to use
now,
so.
Yeah.
We can make fun of white people.
We're white Canadian dudes. We're not allowed to make fun of other people anymore. Yeah. Only ourselves.
Which is good. That's the right thing.
Yes.
To be clear in our stance there.
Yeah.
To be completely transparent, we agree. We are also social justice
also,
warriors.
If you're going to make fun of anybody, it should be white people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, especially men.
Doing okay.
Especially men. Especially Canadian men between the ages of 22 and 30.
Oh, man. You know what? I think old men have it coming.
Yeah.
Definitely. The
generational swing is not going to be fair for them.
If I meet a dude like over 45, I just kind of assume that he's done some shit, that's just how I live my life now.
I'm looking at you, Dad.
That's pretty
grandpa.
Way to generalize, guys.
It was a different time.
Double standard.
Anyways, I think I interrupted you. Did you say the other provinces that it was?
Yeah,
legal
it's
in?
Saskatchewan, Quebec, and Ontario. The only
Not
problem.
BC yet, where we're
No,
from.
the
Well, where we
trickiness
live.
is basically figuring out the infrastructure for the water systems. And,
Right.
And
Yeah, because you're dealing with, like you said, you're literally breaking it down to its chemical components.
yeah,
right?
but
So
you're
you have
still
to-
washing it down
yeah,
the
you
drain.
have to
Yeah,
deal
and
with
you're
those
still
chemical
washing it down
components,
with
and
the lye, which lye is harmful to the environment in certain ways.
that's the truth. It ain't no lie.
Oh boy.
This is what. This is why I'm here.
It's more just like about processing and like figuring out how to actually work the machines into the existing
Infrastructure.
Sure.
plumbing infrastructure. So it's not so much that it's harmful, it's just like figuring out actual logistics.
I would think optics and stuff like that is important
Well,
too.
people
and-
don't know much about it.
and people having.
Yeah.
Like before I brought it up, have you ever heard of a water cremation before?
No.
I had actually, but didn't know any of the details or anything. Like I've, as somebody that has thought about that and is curious about it, I've thought about what I would do and kind
We're
of
looking into
and,
green
you hear about that kind of
options.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, not something I was intimately familiar with in any way. But yeah, and I would think like any new development, and like people are very precious with what generally I think with what they have happens to their bodies after they die and like that kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
That, there's a ceremony,
Especially
there for a reason.
religious.
I
Which
want to
is-
have the biggest. I want to set the record for the funeral with the largest carbon footprint. I want my casket to be flown around the world in a Boeing 747
Oh, hell yeah.
28 times.
Fireworks,
I want my funeral to have
release
the same.
10,000 balloons.
I want my funeral to have the same carbon footprint as my entire life. I'm
Just
going to
all
do the
double it.
math. I'm going to do the
Double it.
math
Double
now.
or nothing.
Yeah,
Double
just-
and nothing.
People just my funeral, instead of like, at weddings they have rice and stuff, they'll have like just aerosol hairspray,
Oh, hell yeah.
and let's be spraying it into the air.
So you're going to go
Sounds
for
like a
like
good
a
time.
regular cremation then? You just
Yeah.
want all those emissions?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I haven't thought too much about. I don't like to dwell on the thought of my own death.
You're going to have to.
I know. Gray hairs and all.
I'd really like
starting
to
poke
sit
out.
down with you both and do our own death plans.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll
Do it
plan
all.
my
We could do
death.
that live
Do it
on
all
air.
legit like. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. I haven't thought about it too much, but when I was thinking about it, I do. All joking aside, want to make it as low emission and low carbon footprint as possible. I think the green burial is a good way to go.
There are so many more options than people
Yeah.
realize,
Yeah.
and there's a lot more interest in that. And also, grave plots, embalming, all that shit is completely unsustainable. There's
I
only
know.
so much land in the world, and how many bodies can we just bury on top of each
Yeah.
other before we have to like?
Well, I like the idea of my body being put in the ground without a casket and just
yeah,
you become worm food, and
just
then
with
the
the
worms
shroud.
become plant food, and
There were a few
That
places
appeals to me in
popping
a lot
up
of
in
ways.
Victoria where they're even not just whole graveyards, but sections of graveyards where you can have like the green burial
yeah,
or
it's
have
like
the tree
it'll be like a
planting.
forest out in the back.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I love. I love the idea of having a usable space.
Mhm.
Yeah, it does. It's something that we obviously need to be thinking about, and it takes time with these things. Like cremation is a relatively recent development,
And it got a
And
lot
it
of
took a
resistance.
Yeah, it took a
Yeah.
long fucking time for that to
But
become the norm.
There's also like
And
an
it was
active
really-
lobby resisting that because guess what's way cheaper than embalming and caskets and the full
Yeah.
deal, right?
And that's the other thing, right? Is that it was necessity that kind of drove it, I think.
Well, yeah,
And so it'll be hopefully the same thing with this kind of thing.
definitely.
So, from my understanding, the idea of embalming, the reason you do it is so that you preserve the body long enough for the entire
Viewing
family
and, yeah.
to come together and view it.
Or if you're like President Lincoln, to throw you on a train and tour you around the country.
Right, which is
After
just
you
so
die,
bizarre.
which is
Or if
something
you're
that used to
Lenin,
happen.
It's
Yeah.
just another
to keep you
thing.
in a vault underneath the Kremlin or wherever he
It's
is.
just another tool that people use to like separate themselves from the reality of death.
Sure.
Like humans, well, all we want to do is be above nature, right?
Yeah.
We just want to create that distance as much as we
we
can.
never truly die because look at this perfectly preserved body of Lenin.
Yeah. Well,
He's-
you can.
There's
you
still
can
a
keep,
piece of him in there or whatever.
You can keep a cadaver in your home for like 4 days before it starts to smell at all.
That's
You
good
this
to
from
know.
Experience.
That's
This
good
is
to know.
just like
See, I've been keeping mine in my
fact,
home
yeah.
for 5 days, and I
it's
noticed
just
that.
like people.
Starting to smell.
You're
Yeah.
like, oh wait, it's starting to turn, and then it's like,
Yeah.
get this out of here.
Old
Right.
Frederick over here is starting to smell a little bit
You know,
bad.
Yeah.
so most
Time
people
to stretch
don't
them out.
really
Freddie
need
got fingered.
embalming at all. Like it does start. You do start to see signs and stuff like that, but it's like,
Yeah.
most people are gonna have their service within the week, if
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are
yeah.
having like an open casket or something like that. But also it's like, the gluing the lips together, the doing the makeup in the hair.
I remember when my grandmother passed away before my grandfather. When my grandmother passed away, we had the you go in and view the body. And I remember the rest of my family all going in and me just sitting in the lobby because I was like, I don't need to see that. I saw her when she 2 weeks before she died, and she already didn't really look like her anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
She lost so much weight and stuff like that and wasn't really responsive. So I was like, I know that's not her. I don't really that's just not what I need. And then when my grandpa died, I kind of got to the point where it was a little bit more we spent more time in the room actually with the body, just kind of he was there and we were there doing our thing. But we would, and I went in without even thinking about it because I think I had even gone past that to the point where I was like, oh yeah, I don't think he's there, to the point where even seeing his body isn't really going to be I know oh, that's not him, that's not.
That's the thing.
And then when I saw him specifically, for one thing, he always had a mustache and he had been shaved, so he didn't look like him. But also just
man,
in general, I was like, oh yeah, that's not him. It doesn't look anything like him.
yeah,
the makeup and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's weird.
So there's that disconnect. So that's the physical, keeping that all that stuff to me is unnecessary. I don't need to see the body.
You could be
No.
the
But-
best makeup artist in the world, but you don't
Oh,
know how this
imagine there would be-
person
yeah.
looked like when they were. I don't let
I would
someone
assume
do
you get,
my
a
makeup.
photo or something like that, but still,
even
there's
then-
only so much you can do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The
You can't
instantly
capture someone's
the
dead body
they have
is-
no color in their skin. There's you have to try
Those
to
big
fake
pink-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like clown makeup.
Yeah.
It's a mask, and again, it's another separation from the reality of death,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah, trying to make them look alive.
yeah, you're picking out an outfit
It
for
really is
them,
specifically doing-
and
Yeah, this was his favorite shirt, and this was his favorite blah blah blah. It's just
yeah, it's. I mean, I
it's
get
like
why
a
some
Barbie
people
doll or
need
something.
that.
It's
And
creepy.
I don't want to be too judgy, so
I mean, if
people
that's-
grow up with
there
that
are-
and they
and there
think
are-
that's the
yeah,
normal.
it's
Yeah, this is
tradition,
just our opinion.
And some people,
This is
that
definitely-
kind of thing is important for. Yeah, and
Totally.
I'm not saying it's not just it's.
But
we're
the
talking
difference
about our
between-
own specific experiences and not making
Yeah.
any judgments.
But I've seen, bodies that have been done up versus bodies that haven't, and I honestly prefer the ones that haven't. It's just more connected to the reality. If we're
Yeah.
talking about
Sure.
a lot of people, they want to see the body as a sort of closure tool.
So they
you
want
know?
to see
Yeah.
So
they want
I
to see
don't-
the
that they know-
blush.
yeah, I can understand how you have that. Then oh, this is the reality.
Like,
this
I need
is
proof.
Real. They're
I need to know they
gone.
didn't fake
Yeah.
their death and just
Yeah.
run away and have
This
a
isn't
family
some
in another
Tupac
province.
situation, is it?
Yeah.
No,
Wait, is Tupac alive?
Yeah.
we don't know.
No, he's dead as shit.
He's real dead.
Yeah, you know what? You know what? Death isn't scary. You know what's really scary?
Michael
Yeah.
Jackson.
Space.
Yeah,
The ocean.
yeah.
What the fuck is in the ocean?
Deep water terrifies
We don't know
me.
anything about this. Death is fine. Suffering is another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. It's a good point.
So speaking of space, by the way, spooky space.
Spooky space.
Yeah.
Spook.
The
Cue spooky music.
the
Skeletons
only people
and
and the first
shivers.
people to die in space
oh,
were 3 crew members of the Soyuz 11, and they suffocated on
Oh
June
my
11th
God.
in 1971 due to a faulty air valve.
Yeah, I've heard about this and read about this story before. That
Ugh.
sounds terrifying.
Awful.
And,
Can you
They
imagine?
have audio from it as well, I believe,
Oh
of
my
these guys.
God.
Because the Russians had a practice of just kind of sending stuff up, and this Stalin as well, right? And this time, and then if something went wrong, these guys knew that if they didn't come back, they would just be erased from history.
Sure.
They would
Yeah.
just not exist anymore. They'd be
Yeah, because it's a failure. It's
Yeah,
like
they'd
a
be-
black spot on
exactly
the
and,
Soviet
and
missile
exactly, and
program.
they don't want that, so they would just erase them from history. They never existed. So there's this audio of these guys. I believe it's this specific instance of them messaging saying something's going wrong. It was the heat shield, right? Is that what it was?
No, it was
Air
the
faulty air valve.
Air valve.
So it might be a
Yeah.
might be
Maybe
a slightly different.
suffocation. Maybe it's a different one. Because there is one where it's them returning the atmosphere and the heat shield doesn't work properly. It's them burning up, basically.
Oh my
So
god.
that technically doesn't count
In
as
space,
space.
because it's
So
in-
Yeah, because they died in the atmosphere.
But I'm sure this would have been the same kind of
Be
them
awful.
radioing, and they just get silence back because they're like, okay, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Because back then it was literally just shoot them in space and see what happens.
Yeah. Hope you come down in one
Can
piece.
you imagine? I guess at least they had each other.
Yeah, that's probably real comforting.
It wasn't
Yeah.
just like alone in the vastness of space, suffocating to death. Like, isn't that like the
That's
you
my
get
like
shot
nightmare.
out of the
I've
Team
thought about
building.
that.
you
That's
get
just
shot
called
out of
good
the
team building.
spaceship in the sci-fi horror movie,
Yeah.
and you're just
George
floating
Clooney
in vastness.
George Clooney in Gravity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just float because you're just floating in nothingness until you eventually starve to death or run out of oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Or get too close to a planet. And
but there's like space.
fall to that planet.
Space is so big that you would never. Like, you'd just be stuck in nothingness forever.
Yeah, it would
you imagine-
lose your mind.
and this just kind of dawned on me, probably the coolest death that I could think of now would be to travel in a spaceship to Mars and then jump out of the spaceship and just plummet to the Martian surface and be the first person, not only the first man on Mars, but the first person to die on Mars
That's not bad.
within the same millisecond,
You're
the
like,
same instant.
Beat that.
Yeah, basically.
if we ever make it to Mars, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
They probably will have that honor of getting both in one.
Oh God, I hope not. I hope
First
it's a
person on
successful
Mars,
mission.
First death.
Oh my god.
Elon Musk, please don't have someone burn up in the Martian atmosphere.
I mean,
That
if
would-
you want to go,
we'd
do
never
whatever
go
you
back
want,
to
do your
Mars.
thing.
Yeah, sure.
I guess you're a crazy
I like
billionaire
Earth.
who owns a
I'm going
million
down with
rockets.
this ship.
And the ship
Yeah.
the ship is going
It's
down
going down.
Oh yeah.
in a major way.
On that note, I got to get going right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
We should
Okay.
probably call it a day.
I think so.
We
We don't have a way to end this thing yet.
No, I guess I'll just say thanks to you guys for showing up, and
Sweet.
thanks for putting up with me not being able to show up last week.
Oh, that's all right.
But,
Thanks for listening, everyone that's listening.
yeah.
If there's anybody listening,
We
I hope
appreciate
there's
you.
Somebody listening.
Is there anyone on the other
Screaming
side?
into the void.
Yeah, I mean that's.
We do appreciate you,
life and
and
death itself.
we hope that that we can make this something that people actually want to take interest in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
And we're definitely going to try and do some community outreach and try to answer questions.
And have some
as-
more
Email
knowledgeable
us.
people
Yes.
Email us.
and email us any topics or questions you
Email
want to
us. Email us at deathdeathdeathpod@gmail.com.
hear. That's the email.
We're also on Twitter and Instagram.
Twitter, Instagram, and we have a Facebook page, and they're all Death Pod.
Yeah.
Or at Death Pod. So it's all the same across the board. Easy to find, whatever platform you're on you want to check out.
Yeah. And if you're listening to
Hit
this
us
currently,
up.
you're probably on YouTube, so we'll have links to all of our other accounts
Yep.
underneath.
Slide into our DMs.
Slide right into our DMs, your preferred DM,
Yeah.
and we'll do our best
Questions,
to
comments, stories, things you'd like to hear us talk about, anything like that.
Yep. Anyway, I've been Robert Irvin.
My name is Jordan Bulgis,
And I'm Jasmine Rayburn.
and as always, remember we're all gonna die.
Don't forget it. Not for a second.
Thanks for listening, guys.